there's a place on Earth where maps seem normal, but reality is not. Thousands of ships have sailed through this region, hundreds of aircraft have crossed it, and many of them never reach the other side. No distress signal, no emergency call, no final message, just complete silence. And the most disturbing part is this: some of these missing vehicles were never found, not even a single piece of wreckage. It's as if the ocean simply erased them. This region is known as the Bermuda Triangle, and what happens here still cannot be fully explained by science. In the Atlantic Ocean, between three major points, Miami in Florida, Bermuda Island, and Puerto Rico, lies a triangular zone of water that has become one of the most debated mysteries in human history. At first glance, it looks like any other part of the ocean: blue water, changing weather, ships passing every day, planes flying overhead. Nothing unusual. But when we look deeper into history, a pattern begins to appear. Over the last century, dozens of aircraft and hundreds of ships have disappeared while crossing this region. And what makes it more disturbing is not just the number, but the consistency. Because these incidents are not limited to storms, or mechanical failure, or human error. They happen in calm weather too. Clear skies, stable ocean, perfect visibility, and still complete disappearance. Most dangerous places on Earth have clear explanations. Mountains have avalanches, deserts have heat, storm zones have hurricanes. But the Bermuda Triangle is different because it doesn't behave like a normal danger zone. In many cases, pilots reported flying conditions that suddenly changed. One moment, everything was normal, and the next moment, instruments started malfunctioning, compasses spinning without direction, radio signals breaking, navigation systems losing accuracy, and worst of all, visibility dropping instantly, like a curtain of fog falling from nowhere. But here's where it gets even more confusing. Not every case includes bad weather. Some disappearances happen in completely peaceful conditions. No storm, no lightning, no warning, just silence. To understand why this mystery became so famous, we need to go back to one of the most well-known cases in aviation history, Flight 19, a routine U.S. Navy training mission. 5 aircraft, experienced pilots. A simple navigation exercise over the Atlantic Ocean. On paper, it was supposed to be a normal day. Clear weather conditions, calm sea below, perfect visibility above. The kind of day where nothing goes wrong. At 2:10 p.m., the planes took off. The mission was simple: fly a triangular route, practice navigation, and return to base. Nothing complicated, nothing dangerous. But within a few hours, something began to feel wrong. One of the pilots reported over radio that their compass was not working properly. At first, it sounded like a minor technical issue, something that could easily be corrected. But then, another message came through, and this time, the tone was different. Uncertain, confused, almost panicked. The pilot said, "We are not sure where we are. Everything looks strange." This was the first sign that something had gone seriously wrong. Normally, experienced pilots can correct navigation errors easily. They use landmarks, sun position, radio guidance, and compass direction. But in this case, everything started failing at once. The compass readings didn't match reality. The ocean below looked unfamiliar, and radio communication became unstable. Even worse, the pilots began to disagree on their position. Each pilot believed they were in a different location. This is where confusion turned into danger, because in aviation, disorientation is deadly. If you don't know where you are, you don't know where to go. And in an endless ocean, there are no visual references, only water and sky. At this point, Flight 19 was no longer just a training mission. It had become a survival situation. Normally, experienced pilots can correct navigation errors easily. They use landmarks, sun position, radio guidance, and compass direction. But in this case, everything started failing at once. The compass readings didn't match reality. The ocean below looked unfamiliar, and radio communication became unstable. Even worse, the pilots began to disagree on their position. Each pilot believed they were in a different location. This is where confusion turned into danger, because in aviation, disorientation is deadly. If you don't know where you are, you don't know where to go, and in an endless ocean, there are no visual references, only water and sky. At this point, Flight 19 was no longer just a training mission. It had become a survival situation. As fuel levels dropped, the situation became critical. The lead pilot made one last attempt to communicate, but the message was unclear, broken, distorted. Something like, "We cannot see land, everything is wrong." After that, radio silence. No further contact. No emergency signal. Nothing. The planes simply vanished from radar coverage. And what happened next made the mystery even deeper, because this was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Hours later, a rescue mission was launched. A large aircraft was sent to search for Flight 19, fully equipped, fully prepared. But then, something even more terrifying happened. That rescue plane also disappeared. Flight 19 was gone. 5 aircraft, experienced pilots, vanished into thin air. But what happened next is what turned this from a tragedy into a mystery. As soon as contact was lost, the naval base went into emergency mode. This was no longer a training exercise. This was a full-scale search operation. Within minutes, a rescue aircraft was prepared. A large plane built for long-distance search, equipped with advanced communication systems. Enough fuel to scan a massive area. It took off with one mission: find Flight 19, bring them home. For a while, everything seemed normal. The rescue plane checked in, reported clear skies, stable conditions, no sign of storm activity. But then, without warning, the communication stopped. No distress signal, no emergency message, no indication of failure. The plane simply disappeared. 6 aircraft, now gone, in the same region, on the same day, back at the base. No one could understand what was happening. One disappearance could be explained. Maybe a navigation error, maybe a fuel issue, but 6 aircraft, all lost, without a single trace? That was something else. Something far beyond normal explanation. Over the next few days, one of the largest search operations in history began. Ships, planes, Coast Guard units, thousands of square miles scanned, every possible route checked, every possible crash scenario considered. They searched for debris, oil slicks, floating wreckage, survivors, anything, but they found nothing, absolutely nothing. No broken wings, no fuel traces, no life rafts, no bodies. It was as if the aircraft had never existed. At this point, questions started to rise. How can multiple aircraft disappear in open ocean without leaving even the smallest trace? Even in the worst crashes, something remains. Metal floats, fuel spreads, signals are detected. But here, there was only silence. And silence is often the most terrifying answer. As the mystery grew, scientists stepped in, because every unexplained event demands an explanation, and the Bermuda Triangle was no exception. The first explanation was simple: weather. The Atlantic Ocean is unpredictable. Storms can form quickly. Waves can rise suddenly. Visibility can disappear in seconds. Maybe Flight 19 flew into a storm. Maybe the rescue plane followed the same path, and both were lost. But there was a problem. Records showed the weather was clear. No major storms. No extreme conditions. Nothing that could explain total disappearance. Then came another theory: magnetic disturbance. The Bermuda Triangle is one of the few places where true north and magnetic north align. This can cause compass errors, navigation confusion, pilots losing direction. But again, this theory had limits. A faulty compass can confuse pilots, but it cannot erase aircraft. It cannot remove debris. It cannot stop all communication instantly. Another explanation came from deep below the ocean. Methane gas. Scientists discovered that large pockets of gas exist under the seabed. If released suddenly, they can reduce water density. Ships can sink instantly. Planes flying above could lose engine power. It sounded possible, even logical, but still, it didn't explain everything, because methane doesn't affect radar systems. It doesn't cause compasses to spin wildly, and it doesn't explain reports from pilots who experience strange visual distortions. Some experts suggested that it was simply human error. Pilots got lost, made wrong decisions, ran out of fuel, crashed into the ocean. But this explanation felt incomplete because trained military pilots rarely all make the same mistake at the same time under normal conditions. Some experts suggested that it was simply human error. Pilots got lost, made wrong decisions, ran out of fuel, crashed into the ocean. But this explanation felt incomplete because trained military pilots rarely all make the same mistake at the same time under normal conditions. And when science cannot fully explain something, people begin to look elsewhere. As scientific explanations fail to satisfy everyone, more unusual ideas began to appear. Ideas that move beyond physics and into the unknown. Some pilots who survived the region reported experiences they couldn't explain. They spoke about sudden fog appearing out of nowhere, not like normal fog, but thick, almost unnatural. They described flying through it and feeling completely disoriented, as if space itself had shifted. Even more disturbing, some claimed time behaved differently, clocks slowing down or jumping forward, flights taking less time than expected, or more, as if reality itself was unstable. There is no scientific proof of this, but the consistency of these reports raises questions. Some sailors described a strange feeling while crossing the region, a sense of being watched, of something beneath the water, something massive, silent, hidden. Of course, there is no evidence of any creature or entity, but fear doesn't always need proof. The Bermuda Triangle has become more than a location. It has become an idea, a symbol of the unknown, where logic struggles and imagination takes over. And sometimes the fear of the unknown is stronger than the truth itself. But even today, with modern technology, satellites, advanced radar, GPS systems, people still report unusual incidents in this region. Not as frequent, not as dramatic, but enough to keep the mystery alive. So, what is the Bermuda Triangle? A natural phenomenon we don't fully understand yet? A combination of rare conditions creating deadly situations? Or something else entirely? Something hidden beneath the surface of the ocean? Because one thing is certain, the ocean does not give up its secrets easily. And somewhere in that vast dark water, the truth still waits, unseen, unknown, and maybe never meant to be discovered.